Very big thanks to the organizers for getting us here. It's a real pleasure to be amongst you. And of course, we saw how passionately C.Ghoose spoke in the morning. He could have beaten any political speaker from Bengal. That was a real pleasure. Of course, I didn't understand much of what you said. I mean, language is a barrier for me because I obviously don't understand Kannada. But I could feel his passion, I could feel his enthusiasm, and that is very infectious. So it's a matter of pride for us. It's a matter of privilege for us to be in Mysore, particularly because now Mysore has beaten Bengal by doing this. How does this work?
Is that forward, sir?
Right. First button, sir.
It doesn't work. If I aim at that, it doesn't work.
Yes, sir.
Aim at the laptop.
Anuj,
Aim at the laptop.
It doesn't.
Please. 1 minute, please.
I won't take much of your time because we have lost a lot of time in setting up and everything. We will go straight into the heart of the matter, but just a few things, just a few words. I mean, here what Sandeep Balakrishna was saying in the morning, we are talking about a person who at the age of 18 was describing how he wanted to grow up, what he wanted to become when he became an adult, what he wanted to do in his life. And he wrote to his friend, what did he want to become? He said the aim of his life was, when people ask us, what do you want to become when you grow up? We say we want to become a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist or an astronaut. That kind of stuff we like telling people. So here is an 18-year-old boy telling his friend, when asked, what do you want to become when you grow up? He says, I want to become the embodiment of the past, the product of the present, and prophet of the future. So that is what he actually became. He was always rooted in the past of the country, the history and legacy. He represented fully, completely. He was as modern as one could be in terms of being appraised of whatever was going on around the world. So minute to minute he was updated and he knew what was going on around him, and combined these two factors to see what is going to come in the future. And that ability he mastered to such an extent that he could foresee probably what others could not, other contemporary leaders could not. So he foresaw problems which were like 50 years ahead of his time. And that became a problem because others misunderstood him, others did not like him. You know, I mean, in a company of, when you have a group of people, the mediocre people don't like the brilliant ones or the geniuses. They always have an inferiority complex. They try to shorten his stature, and that's exactly what happened with Netaji as well. Now, I mean, just one more point. I don't want to get into a political description, although I wanted to, if I had more time, I would have explained a bit more. But I will just end with one small statistic, a data point. Most people think that we know about Netaji and his disappearance is the only point of mystery. Actually, that is not true. We knew when we started working on this aspect, the disappearance mystery, about 2 decades ago. We are also under the same impression, but very quickly we understood we knew very little about his life. His life was as much a mystery as was his disappearance, because most of the information was classified, was kept secret in files by the government for many, many decades. To give an example, the Indian National Army, which was disbanded in 1945, and there was nothing sensitive about it, there was nothing secret about it, yet the government made the files related to the INA public in 1997. That is more than 50 years after the World War ended. So you can imagine what kind of secrecy was maintained about Netaji and his activities. The full declassification, we will come to the issue of declassification during the main presentation, but full declassification happened when it happened. more than 300 files were declassified in 2016, 64 files by the government of West Bengal, and before that, by the UPA government, more than 10,000 pages documents were declassified. And all this happened and could happen because we picked up a file. And that is a very central position, a very big dilemma that you have to keep in the background of your mind all the time when we are talking, that this was not an academic exercise. The government of India has a specific position on this matter. From 1946, it has never changed. The government of India has consistently held that Subhash Chandra Bose died in a plane crash in 1945. And it has employed all state machinery to make that the truth, to make the people of the country believe that as the truth. So from that position, we had to pick up a fight with the government, get documents out in the public and prove that it is not true. There was no plane crash, there was no death in 1945, 18th of August. What happened is more shocking than fiction. Even fiction cannot be more shocking. So we had to prove that with the help of data, with the help of proper evidence. And this fight is an uneven fight. We are people who have no power, no privilege, no position in the society, nothing special, no resource. They are very, very unequal fight. But we could continue the fight and we could establish our point of view only because we had proper evidence and information on our side, and that information did not come easily. We had to spend years of our life dedicated to this struggle. So we could do that. But just come back to the my point of how much do we know about Netaji. Just one statistic will prove how much we know. Between Subhash Chandra Bose was politically active in India between the years 1921 and 1945. In India or Southeast Asia or Europe, whatever, his politically active life was 1921 to 1945. Now, if we take this 25-year period and compare the number of pages in the published works, the collected or selected or complete works of three people, Gandhi, Nehru and Bose. The number of pages in Gandhi's collected works for these 25 years are about 30,000 printed pages for these 25 years. For Nehru, it is about 9,000. For Bose, it is just about 3,000. 1/10 of Gandhi. It doesn't mean that Bose wrote any less or spoke any less or worked any less. Probably he worked harder than the remaining two. He was more active globally. He went around, set up governments and armies in 2 continents. So you expect that there will be more information, but in reality, it is exactly the opposite. We knew far less. So we are in the process of getting out information. We have won the first round, but then there is a lot more to be done, and we will do it hopefully with your help and support. But this is where we are. We are talking about a man who, now Anuj, you can play the video, just to remind ourselves, why are we even talking about him today here, like 80 years after his so-called death. It's a clipping, it's a song from the movie Gumnami. Many of you might have seen it. And we have just added some visuals, actual original visuals, to make it more authentic, to give you the proper feel of what we might have felt had we lived in his time and what he did for our freedom. I mean, such daredevilry, such vision, such determination, and that revolutionary, undying revolutionary spirit, the power to inspire millions across caste, creed, religion, across all the divides. Nobody could show it. Expand the video, the screen.
हाँ
आवाज कहाँ पे आ रही है? ऊपर आ रही, नीचे
आवाज आ रहा है पर विजुअल नहीं आ रहा है.
विजुअल।
PPT.
We try to speak in a mixture of English and Hindi so that we can remove the language barrier to the extent possible. I wish we could talk in Kannada, but
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಶೋ ಆಗಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇರಬೇಕು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮೋಡ್ ತೆಗಿಬೇಕು ಇದನ್ನು ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಕಲ್ಕಟ್ಟೆ ಬಸ್ 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 ಬಸ್
ನೀವು ಆಪ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇದೇ ಬರ್ದಿಲ್ಲ
आवाज गायब हो गया सुनने के बाद।
what about the sound?
The sound has been
It's not working yet. Let's remove it. It's not working. It's not about that, boss. उसका audio नहीं capture.
ಏನು ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ
ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಚೂರು ಜೋರ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಕೊಡಿ ಸೌಂಡ್
और झूठ में बात करना मुश्किल हो जाता है। मेरे हाथ से कदमों में दर्द, मेरी मौत की कहानी कुछ ऐसी ही है।
Presentation पे जाइए उसका वापस।
So it's said that technology can create miracles, and we are very close to India's Silicon Valley, and we just saw a miracle. The voice of the singer vanished, and only the music could be heard. So I have never seen anything like that. That Sonu Nigam's voice just vanished from the song, and we only had the background music. Anyway, we lived through that. But coming to the point, I mean, you see, when Subhash Chandra Bose's death, news of his death arrived in India, initially people believed it, but gradually more and more information started pouring in, and people started questioning. I'm talking of common people. People in power, people who were ruling elite, they had a different mindset, they had access to different sets of information, and obviously many of them were skeptical. They did not believe, they took it with a pinch of salt, and different kind of reactions came in from different quarters. Now, what happens is, in this situation of uncertainty and skepticism, naturally human mind plays its own games, and people started coming up with a variety of theories of what happened to him. And plenty of theories, like scores of theories. That somebody said that he was shot dead by the Japanese, somebody said he was brought back to the Red Fort and killed there, somebody said that he had taken sannyas and had gone away, somebody said that actually the plane crash had taken place, somebody said he was taken to Russia and killed there. So scores of theories came up. I'm just touching the surface here. Now we have gone through all these hypotheses, all these theories, because that's what we need to do as researchers, and we looked into the evidence of each hypothesis. And if you scan through these theories and look at the underlying evidence, there are only three possible scenarios that come out as plausible. The first one is the government theory, which is that Netaji died in 1945. The second one is that he went to Russia, and according to some researchers, he was killed there. He was kept in prison for some time in the Siberian Gulag, and then probably terminated. Among the current proponents, yes, these are the two most prominent names, General G.D. Bakshi and Subramanian Swamy. And the funny part is that the third plausible scenario is that he came back to India and lived here incognito till 1985, till his death. That is what we have found the most plausible. It's no more a hypothesis for us, because the kind of evidence that we have found, for us, it is the truth. Now, the others who don't believe, like those who propagate the Russian theory, like General J.D. Bakshi and Subramanian Swamy, we have number of times invited them to an open public debate, but somehow they never agree. Somehow they never like putting their evidence in the front of public and engage in a debate, a constructive debate with us. Now, the thing is that we have been doing this for many, many years. This is not something new. It's not a new discovery. We came to a firm conclusion. In fact, Anuj wrote his first book, Back from Dead, in 2004, even before the Justice Mukherjee Commission report had come out. And there he had hinted very strongly, he had taken a position that the third scenario is the most plausible one. And thereafter, we have gathered much, much more evidence in the next 20 years. We have gathered so much evidence that practically there can be no question today where the truth lies. But even then, we have been talking about this for so many years, so many decades. We find people, they come up to us after listening to everybody, everything we have to say. There are two groups of people. They listen to us, and there is the other group who don't want to listen to anything because they have already formed their opinion. And their opinion is based on nothing but belief, and that is the most difficult thing to deal with. You can't fight with somebody's belief. So they will, after listening to you for 3 hours, 4 hours, they will come and say, but I don't believe. मेरा मानने का मन नहीं करता है कि ऐसे नेताजी ऐसे रह सकते हैं. कैसे हो सकता है कि नेताजी ऐसा एक इतना बड़ा आदमी ऐसे कोई जिंदगी गुजार सकता है छिप के, कहीं पे यहाँ रह के, वहाँ रह के, तो यहाँ कभी यहाँ ऐसे. A man like him can never live like that. So that's a question of belief, and that's a question of belief of a common man. And belief also has to be categorized. Belief of a common man, it is different from the belief of a very powerful personality, like belief of Mahatma Gandhi. When Mahatma Gandhi believes something, he believes on the basis of some sources of information which he will not divulge. And they give some very clever names to such beliefs, like अंतरात्मा की आवाज आ रही है, I mean, अंदर से आवाज आया, भगवान ने बोला इस टाइप का. So, I mean, the most recent example I like to cite is after the 2004 elections when Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister and when everybody expected that Sonia Gandhi would become the Prime Minister. Sonia Gandhi explained that अंतरात्मा की जो आवाज आई थी, it told her not to become the Prime Minister. So in most cases like that, you will find that अंतरात्मा की आवाज जो होता है ना, वो intelligence reports होते हैं. तो इंटेलिजेंस की रिपोर्ट जब गांधी जी के पास आते थे, तो गांधी जी gave the statement that I don't believe in his death. He changed his opinion after some time and said publicly that okay, fine, I have spoken to the INA soldiers, now I accept that he died with a plane crash. That's what he said publicly. But अंदर ही अंदर कुछ और ही चल रहा था. In 46 March or February, he said that okay, I've accepted his death. In 46 June, we find his secretary writing to his most famous biographer, Louis Fisher, that if Subhas Bose comes back at the head of a Russian army, Bapu can reason with neither with the Congress nor with the country. So Bapu has gone back to believing that Subhas is alive, but he never spoke about that in public. तो जो अंतरात्मा की आवाज कभी-कभी बोलना होता है पब्लिक में, कभी-कभी छुपा के रखना होता है. So you have to be very careful about your अंतरात्मा. And so this is what, and the Bose family also, they knew, they worked with us, a section of the Bose family worked with us for significant number of years, hand in hand. Practically we briefed them, taught them about the entire case. They had no idea, other than having a famous grand uncle, they had no knowledge about history or his life. So we practically trained them with all the information and the details, and they knew what we believe, what we have accepted as the truth. But then probably they never thought that this will one day become the mainstream. And when in 2019 Conundrum was about to be published and Gumnami, the movie, was about to come out, they were shocked that this has become mainstream and people are actually talking about this and started accepting the evidence because it was so stark in front of everybody, nobody could ignore it anymore. Suddenly they changed their position and started saying that we don't believe. So there, all the reason, all the facts which all members, all generations of Bose family members had been talking about, they junked everything and started saying, we can't believe. So you have to believe and evidence. I mean, this is a very informed audience we have today. We are very lucky. We have researchers, we have teachers, so many teachers, we have senior citizens, all well established and rational people, and we usually don't get this kind of audience. So when you are listening, when you listen to us, when you look at the evidence we are presenting in front of you, keep that in mind. Not for a single second we will appeal to your belief. We will always appeal to your reason, because we will give you facts, we will give you evidence, and we challenge anyone in this country to show any objection to the credibility of the facts and evidence that we will present to you. In contrast, for the other two scenarios, whenever you will see them on the television or in a panel, they will keep mouthing about just rhetoric, belief and rhetoric. Very little facts, no credible evidence, but they will give their opinion. We will give you facts and ask you to make up your mind and reach a conclusion. So, I mean, it won't take much more time. I will ask Anush to start with the first scenario, which is the theory of Netaji's death in plane crash in Taihoku on 18th August 1945. वो काम नहीं कर रहा है, पक्का? नहीं कर रहा। Let me go down and do it from there. छोड़ दो मारो।
आप इस साइड पे करना।
यस सर।
इतना वो इशू नहीं हो जाएगा कि
और इस
हाँ
इस बेटा यू गो डाउन।
I go down and
यस सर।
Bring that out.
जो पहली चीज आपने देखा अभी चंद्रचूड़ ने जो आपको आउटलाइन बना के दी है,
हमने जितने सोर्सेस आपको साइट कर उसने कहा कि वी आर अपीलिंग टू रीजन, वी आर नॉट अपीलिंग टू योर लाइक इट्स अ वेरी स्मॉल ऑडियंस. सो व्हाटएवर यू आर गोइंग टू बी शोन ऑन स्क्रीन, so like these three scenarios, everything we show will be either government records from India or outside, citation from the court orders, or probably something from newspaper. But these will be standard newspapers, not like some tabloid we picked up from there and there. So, for example, these three scenarios that we are discussing today. This is the first scenario. The Subhash was wearing a pin crush. This is the how the report was broken in 45. This used to be the number one newspaper for Bengal in those days, the Sun Standard. So this is how the news of Netaji's death broke in 1945. This is theory number one. Theory number two, of course, the General G.D. Bakshi and Subramanian Swamy, among others, they promote this line. This is Hindustan Times. I used to work there. Hindustan Times, like this is Bose was in Russia, and Indian ambassador saw Netaji in Moscow after his death. Who was that ambassador? Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan.
Yes.
God forbid it should be true. इस केस में एमएलए लपेटे में नहीं आएंगे, इसमें प्रधानमंत्री राष्ट्रपति की लाइन लगने वाली है. It's not a joke, this entire case. The names are being taken of the prime ministers and presidents who were part of the cover-up. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying this is the level to which, and this is Hindustan Times. It is a Congress people, it used to be my time. So this is, you have to keep in mind. So these are not I'm not showing organizer or Panjang here. This is Hindustan Times. And the third scenario, of course, is the so-called Bamami Baba, that Netaji died in the guise of a holy man in India. Common point, suppose there's an argument, is C.Ghoose is in Hyderabad or Mysore or Calcutta. Well, if he's standing in front of you, he cannot be in these two places, the other places. If I am standing here, I am here. Then I cannot be in Delhi. So if it is proven Subhash Bose died in Taiwan in a plane crash, so he died there, so he cannot come back to his life and then die again in Russia in 53, 54. And if he died in Russia in 53, he cannot die either in Taiwan or in India later on. It is not possible for people to claim that we saw Netaji in 1975, but the man died in 45. How can you see him? Only evidence matter, as explained. Ideally, we would try to stick to the legally tenable sort of a thing. In a court of law, you can argue with certain evidence. So that is the yardstick. But then, at the same time, is reasonable thing. For example, Gandhiji was not an ordinary person. When Gandhiji made public statement one after another, Subhash was alive. Add to it, we have number of reports of intelligence to support this claim. So why would Gandhiji have died? Why would, I mean, he would have some good reason to talk about it. But you can say whatever Gandhiji said was not legally tenable because Gandhiji never made a statement before any court of law or a commission of inquiry. That is a legal technicality. Otherwise, you know and I know that Gandhiji, being Gandhiji, he could not have said this without knowing something. Of course, he knew a lot. This hearsay and belief, as C.Ghoose said, is not evidence. We get bowled over by the somebody is very big, very well known. Subramanian Swamy is saying so. So Swamiji is a very important leader, I'm sure. So the thing is, he's saying so you go by his belief. No, he may be a very big person. Somebody may be a foreign secretary. Somebody may be an IDG. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, we have to go by the evidence part, not by belief of person, person B, person C. Yes, if a person has gone ahead and spoken before a court of inquiry or a commission or reputed media, I am willing to give him some importance. I may not accept, but for example, if we discuss this particular portion, like a statement made by a member of Subhash Bose's family, it is criminal defamation to say that Netaji came Gumami Baba, published in National Herald, which is Congress mouthpiece. So obviously it makes all the sense. Well, Netaji's great grandnephew living in London, why won't he? Of course, he is talking sense. But you do not know that this grandnephew is a Congress party spokesperson. He has next to guide. He is not being truthful. My problem, C.Ghoose problem as a researcher is that shall I believe him on the face of it, or shall I believe this person? This person is N.T. Majumdar, who was a London-trained barrister, a very well-known Congress leader. He was a law minister of Bengal for some time. He was Netaji's family's lawyer before Costa Commission in 1970 and 74. The gentleman was the lawyer for Subhash Bose's family. And what you see here are what he told the commission on record. 1973, before the commission set up by Indira Gandhi government under public pressure. The family of Netaji, through their lawyer, made assertion in 73 that he is alive today. So shall I believe him or shall I believe some member of the family who today is part of a Congress party? So this is a statement made by and the family elders were alive in 1973.
It's not only the Congress party actually. I mean, Ashish Ray, whose name was shown in the previous slide, is a member of Congress.
No.
He sits in the UK and he is a top level Congress worker. And the other person in the Bose family is Sugata Bose, who is a professor at Harvard. He's a historian in the US and a politician in India. He used to be a member of parliament of the Trinamool Congress. And both of them argued that what we are saying is an insult to Netaji's image. So, that's how the battle of narrative is fought. This line of argument, their objection has become the line of argument for the two political parties. So both Congress and the Trinamool Congress have taken up that what you are saying is an insult to Netaji's memory and Netaji's image. So none of them actually want to look at the evidence. None of them want to come into a public debate. They don't want to discuss the evidence in public, but they will take recourse to this kind of rhetoric.
Now, Netaji's, like, as you saw in the still from the movie, the visual from the movie, Subhash Bose was, as we know, part of the SS bloc, and they were like 7th and 9th, they were atomic devices were set upon Japan, so Japan suffered the nuclear holocaust. So approximately like 15th of August 1945, Japanese announced they were going to surrender to the Allies, to the Americans. And when that decision was made, Subhash Chandra Bose had to decide for himself, for the people he was leading. There were lakhs of people under his command virtually. The INA was there, the other civilians part, and so on and so forth. So a decision had to be taken by him where to surrender. Where should I surrender? There are thousands of people under my command, and God knows what will happen to them. So he was not able to take the call on his own because he had to talk to the Japanese at the high level. The problem with communication bomb, and after these nuclear bombs falling on Japanese were like not available easily. So the decision taken was that he will go to Japan, Tokyo, and he will talk to the Japanese highest level people, and then he would come back, and then he would implement and he will go about and surrendering the island and so on and so forth. So it was keeping in mind that objective that I have to go to Japan, discuss the matter with the Japanese highest level people, and then come, and then he used to have come back. So he was like in Singapore around 15, on 16th he arrives in Bangkok, and on the 17th morning he arrives in Saigon. This picture was taken in Saigon, this is the last picture. So obviously the people who met him in the last couple of days. So this was the last picture of him taken when he arrived in the morning on 17th August morning. In the evening of 17th of August, he left Saigon, and by this, so he was traveling with some 7-8 people, Indian and of course some Japanese, and his initially they were planning all of them would go together, but Japanese told him that we have no seats are not available, so we cannot make arrangement for all of you to fly, so you alone go. Then Subhash Bose and these people, they haggled with Japanese, and eventually they were given, one more seat was made available. Subhash Bose decided that he would take his ADC Habibur Rahman with him. So 17th of August 1945, from Saigon, Subhash and Habib boarded a plane. So till this point, there is no dispute. Evening of the same day, Subhash and Habib left, and they were seen off by Abid Hassan, Gulzara Singh, Pritam Singh, and S.A. Iyer, whose name you were taking initially. So of which, of these people, Pritam Singh died in 2010. And the others, of course, lived till about 1990s. And so we have their testimonies, records available, whatever this is all available. And unfortunately, the next day, the plane arrived in what is now known as the Taiwan Domestic Songshan Airport. So this was the airport where the next day, unfortunately, the plane crash took place. I hope the video works. Yes. So this is a new video, of course, but here the plane took off, and the plane crash per se did not kill Netaji. He was sitting, it was a bomber plane, and bomber plane was, and they were sitting in a bomber plane. There was no places to sit, so he was sitting on a top of a cushion on the floor, and when the plane went up and it came down, so the impact did not kill Subhash Bose. But it so happened there was a gasoline tank above his head, and this gasoline tank burst. Tank burst, and his upper part of his body was drenched in gasoline. And when he tried to jump up, when he jumped out of this plane which had caught fire by this time, he caught fire. And Habibur Rahman, the poor fellow, he own bare hands, he tried to take his clothes off. So by the time the belt would not come easily. By the time he was able to remove the clothes, he had suffered third-degree burns. And third-degree burns, a doctor sitting here, 3-degree burns, and nobody can survive even today. This is 1945, so he's couple of hours, he was taken to local hospital. This is the picture of the wreck, the plane, which was carrying Subhash Bose and others. They tried their level best, but by the evening he was dead. This is the picture of Subhash Bose's dead body. And then a decision had to be taken. Initially, their plan was to take body to Singapore. But then it was again not possible. Second World War had just ended and things were in a disarray. So they waited for some time, and after some time they decided to cremate Subhash Bose itself after 2-3 days. And this is a picture of Habibur Rahman taken at the hospital. And his hands are bandaged because the hands were burnt. And there's a container which is having Subhash Bose's remains, ashes were there after cremation. After, I think early first week of September 45, Rahman flew to Tokyo and he took this container with him to Japan. And there, this was handed over to the Japanese military, highest level, and then in turn was handed over to S.A. Iyer and Munga Ramamurthy, two Indians. And these two gentlemen took these remains to a place called Renkoji Temple. It's still there's a new picture, but this is the ashes of Netaji are still kept. Picture was taken recently by a friend who visited Japan. So this is the sum and substance of the entire plane crash story. So you would ask, why would we even question? As I am saying myself, there are eyewitness accounts. In cases of accidents, these are the best evidence possible probably one can give. But the problem is not with us. The problem is, when the news came out of Netaji's death, you saw in the newspaper, it was flashed in 45. Everybody believed that he died. Of course, why would anybody doubt? Gandhiji cried, he was in Pune, Panditji was in Abbottabad, there was Hartal everywhere in the country. People were generally very sad. So people could not understand what was happening. I mean, it is like, today we plan that we will have a session. All of us will go to a village, 50 miles away from Mysore, and we'll talk about RNW, how it functions in Islamabad. What will they know RNW? What is RNW? How does RAW function in Islamabad? How will people from village will understand? So it is the idea that somebody can plant a news of his death and escape is something which is beyond the imagination of people, especially in those days. Today at least we know what's happening, what is war, military, security, intelligence, IB operations. You're talking about 45 people who are simple-minded in those days. So people couldn't imagine. So people thought he was dead, gone for it. It is the Americans and British who realized something was wrong. Because there are multiple reasons. First of all, the news of the death came out after 5 days. So the man has died and gone. Why should you withhold information? So this gentleman, Field Marshal, what was his name? Archibald Wavell. Wavell was the Field Marshal of Viceroy of India, the number one man in the country. So when he heard the news of Subhash Bose's death, this is what he wanted to write. I don't believe it, because please understand, Netaji was one person. They were paying for his blood for all these years. So your enemy who has the knack of giving you, he can put a trick here and there. So you were about to catch him, and had Netaji not died on 18th of August 45, probably in the next week he would have landed in British hand. So you are about to lay your hands on your enemy number one, and suddenly he dies. The news of his death comes. So he said, I found something wrong here. And he said, no, I don't believe this is, will not go by just the report. There has to be a proper inquiry into this entire matter. So the inquiry was, there were multiple inquiries that happened. The Americans started the inquiry. Eventually, there was this is a document in which he is, giving the order for the inquiry. Eventually, a group was formed. It was called Combined Section in the military headquarters, headed by W. McKnight, who was number 2 in IB. And under him, there were a number of other military intelligence and CID officers. For example, Philip Finney. Finney was Bengal Police Chief, Assistant Director of IB. Rai Bahadur Bakshi Badrinath, Punjab CID, leader of IB, and he was I think, DG of Police, Kashmir after independence. These are very well-known intelligence and other people of that period. Expert on Subhash Bose, expert in interrogating people. So they were domain experts. So this entire team of several people, and they worked under the aegis of Combined Section, and Combined Section for receiving intelligence from different sites, from the other sources other than from India, other sources. It did not take them much to understand the story of Subhash Bose's death was based on more or less hearsay. If we all remember, there was a Sanjay Gandhi died, for example, in India. Now Sanjay Gandhi came to the airport in Delhi. People saw him come, so you have the eyewitness account. Then Sanjay Gandhi boarded the plane. People saw him boarding the plane. The plane went up, everybody saw plane going up, and the plane came down. So then the body was retrieved. So bodies are available. So the chain of evidence is very clear. Sanjay Gandhi, he comes to the airport, he's seen by people, he gets on the plane, and then bodies available, so story is finished. Now the problem with this Subhash Bose case is, there was never direct evidence. That is the main point which has been conceived. how do you prove this is Subhash Bose's body? So the entire story was essentially based on statement made by a number of people. And when these people were examined, for example, you see something, unfolding before your eyes, you will never forget. You will take roughly 1 day to forget, what you might forget one day that this meeting took place there. We are sitting today. But suppose we have spent so much of time, entire day talking about Netaji, you will never forget till the rest of your life that you attended a session like this. Likewise, you see a ghastly event. Imagine a VIP is burnt alive in front of you. So Japanese claim that they saw a very important person who was burned alive. He was stripped naked, and his naked body was taken to the hospital. Do you think such a grisly scene they'd forget? But when they were asked to recall what had happened, they gave different versions. Every time, for example, Habibur Rahman in particular, every time he opened his mouth, he would introduce a new story. So there are certain mistakes you will make. One person says the plane went 100 feet in the air, other one said 200 feet in the air and then came down. But 100 feet and 12,000 feet will not match. So
let me just let me take a couple of minutes to explain this a little in a little more detail because as we said, our narrative, our fight is with the government and also the family of Subhash Chandra Bose. Both of them are very powerful in their own areas, and this is an unequal fight. So it's easy for them to confuse people. Now let me give you a little more background to this story of eyewitness account, because that is the most convenient way of historians, academicians and politicians to say, अरे इतने सारे eyewitness थे, इतने लोगों ने देखा मरते हुए, तुम क्या बकवास कर रहे हो? तो हम क्या बकवास करते हैं, ये आपको थोड़ा समझाते हैं. The plane that crashed apparently in Taihoku, there were about 16 or 17 passengers. And of those 16 and 17 passengers, only 2 people knew Netaji. One was Habibur Rahman, who was his aide, and there was another Japanese general who had seen Netaji, never knew him personally. He was meeting Netaji for the first time formally. None of the other passengers knew Netaji, they were meeting him for the first time. Okay. Now, there were 2 kinds of passengers in the flight. One group was going to Manchuria for arranging the Japanese surrender to the Russian army. The Soviet Union had invaded Manchuria, so they were going to arrange the surrender. And the other group was going to Tokyo. Now, when later the accident pattern, those who died, about 6 or 7 survived, others died. When the classification was looked at by detail, it was strangely found that those who were supposed to go to Manchuria, all of them were dead. And those who were going to Tokyo were all alive. So very convenient. Now, how many witnesses were there around when the plane crashed in the airfield? Hardly 2 or 3. Hardly 2 or 3. Or maybe 4 or 5 at the most. And none of them knew Netaji. Okay. Among the passengers who survived, these people gave their witness account. So somebody said the plane nosedived. Somebody said the plane fell on the right side. Somebody said it fell on the left side. Somebody said the plane, after falling, split into 2 in the middle. 2 other people said it split towards the tail. 2 other people said it split near the engine. भाई कुछ तो बताओ सही तरीके से, मतलब एक प्लेन टूट रहा है, ये कोई खिलौना नहीं है. So because it is important, because most of them came out through that gap where the plane broke down. And after, who brought Netaji out? Habib is saying, I brought him out. There are 2 other Japanese generals who are saying, I brought him out. एक बोल रहा Netaji के शरीर पे कोई कपड़ा नहीं था, not even a thread. Another person is saying he was fully clothed. So, what do historians do and what do researchers like us do? I thank my stars that we are not academically trained historians. तो हम सच बोल सकते हैं, हमें झूठ बोलने की जरूरत नहीं होता. We don't give in to demands of the institution. So, one very big American biographer of Netaji, he said that I have spoken to eyewitness accounts, Japanese survivors, and then I have reached this conclusion that he died in the plane crash, and there is no doubt about it. That honorable historian, what he forgot to mention or deliberately suppressed it, which we dug out, is that he spoke to one Japanese general who was there at the side of the plane crash.
Lieutenant Colonel, not only one general.
Taro Kono.
Kono was the major.
Major Taro Kono. So he was there. तो ये जो हिस्टोरियन जब गए इनसे मिलने, इनको बोला कि आई सॉ नेताजी स्टैंडिंग लाइक, आई मीन प्लेन नॉर्मल ऐसे खड़े हैं, लुकिंग वेरी dejected, looking away towards the east or west side and standing there, and nothing happened to him. A slight fire and all. So I saw him like that. That same gentleman came to one of the commissions of inquiry to give eyewitness account. There he said, I saw Netaji's all clothes burning. He was totally in fire. His flesh was burned, his hair was burned, and all his clothes were taken off. There was not a thread on his body, and he looked like ghastly. So the same person giving two different accounts at two different places to do two different people. And the historian just takes one and says, okay, because I have heard it, this is the truth. And because he is a historian somewhere in Harvard or somewhere, people will take his word as the gospel truth. That is how our society works, that is how information is spread, and that is how people are misinformed.
But luckily we have documents available now because these files were released, not, of course they were classified. Most of the important, because the investigations of Bharat forces that happened under the lead of Indian Army and British Indian government, so documents are there in Delhi National Archive. Many people have assumption, they keep talking about, oh yeah, I went to UK National Archive, I got some record. Baba, you have records in National Archive, Delhi, they are signed copies. This is, for example, Habib's interrogation reports are available. Now this is a report of interrogation as I was telling you, command section, Mr. McCrae is the boss. CSDRC, Red Fort, the Red Fort was for some of you would recall, for a long time the head of the Indian Army in IB, even after independence. Still part of Red Fort is with the Indian Army today. So this is where they were interrogated, Habib was interrogated. So this report says very clearly that he has been questioned again on his knowledge of process plans. He has adhered to his earlier attitude of ingenuous denial. So the report after report saying that guy is not being truthful. So I don't need some historian just because he's flashing his degree of being in Harvard. I've got the original records with me, and these records have become available. I was the first one to exist them because nobody could find them. So these records are available, and they are telling the story. Now the thing, this is Habibur Rahman. Of course, he looked, as in general, he was not at all cooperative in the investigation of the British. Then what it so happened, the British, of course, they smelled the rat and they did not believe what Rahman was saying. So they asked the Americans about it. So the Americans were the first people who started the inquiry to Subhash Bose's death. They, came to this place, occupied Taiwan in 45 after the Second World War. Habib was arrested by the US Army. The first interrogation and the first inquiry into Netaji's death then was by the American US Army. So the British intelligence asked through the consulate of America in Mumbai now, to tell them what happened, because you must be, there's the letters written, the documents are available. So they inquired, you must be aware what really happened. So this is the answer came from the American Department of Defense. Now the name was different in those days. This is 20th June 1946, almost 10 years after Subhash Bose's death. Imagine same kind of document record is available for Madhav's India, what will happen in this country. 20th June 1946, a search of the files in the Intelligence Division reveals that there is no direct evidence that Subhash Chandra Bose was killed in a plane crash, despite the public statement of Japanese to that effect. So Japanese are saying so that he is right, but there is no direct evidence. So this becomes your reason number one. Somebody asked you, okay, why don't you believe Government of India's version that Netaji died in a plane crash? Double. Reason number one, the Americans who came first, who did on the spot inquiry, the Americans are saying gospel truth, no direct evidence. Let not some Howard, historian with the American accent fool you. He may not have all the facts, he may have the accent but not the evidence. Now we go to reason number two, why should you disbelieve it? 1962-63, Pandit Nehru, Chacha Nehru made a statement in Parliament, there was some debate because right from 1946, when India, like the transfer of power had started, they were question after question, every session from all parts of the country or Subhash Bose's death. Everybody was asking these questions. So the government was not being very straightforward anyhow, but there was again a debate in 1962, and Panditji said that Netaji has died. Subhash Bose's brother, Subhash Chandra Bose, who had a legal background, and he confronted Pandit Nehru writing a letter. He asked, give me my brother's precise and direct proof of my brother's death. Panditji himself was a lawyer, he knew law, he understood what is meaning, and he was the prime minister of the country. So this is what Chacha Nehru accepted. I cannot send you any precise and direct proof. So second reason for you to understand This is not an open and shut case like Sanjay Gandhi's, dying in Delhi. Even Chacha Nehru is accepting in 62 after so many inquiries, because there were multiple inquiries after independence. This is a different topic altogether.
So in essence, he is saying the same thing as the American Department.
Without
There is no direct evidence.
Then let's come to now 1997ish. Now 1997 was the 100th year of Netaji's birth, and at that point in time, people, those, and there were people talking about Netaji, and then because it's also the 50th of Indian independence. When it was happening, people who supported the plane crash story, they started saying, look, you have been talking about Netaji death history for a long time, so nothing has come out of it, so let bygone be bygone. Time has come for to bring Netaji's ashes from Japan and bring them to India. So this kind of a statement was made by somebji. Mulayam Singh Yadav ji, Devi Gowda was the Prime Minister, luckily for us, because every time, keep in mind one thing, every time we've had a non-Congress government in Delhi, something positive happened in Subhash Chandra Bose case. Every time. Every time, starting with Morarji Bhai. Morarji Bhai, VP Singh, Devi Gowda was a long story. And what happened that the defense minister unwittingly made a statement that I'll bring the ashes. Somebody went and filed a suit in Calcutta High Court. Now this gentleman was Subhash Chandra Mishra, was the Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court. Because keep in mind one thing, most people are of the illusion that कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट का तो बंगाली होगा, बंगालियों का सेंट्री होगा, बंगालियों को सुभाष बोस में ढेरे का इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, वो अलग कहानी है, उसको छोड़ दो. आजकल का जो प्रोटोकॉल हम लोग का है यहाँ पे, the chief justice of a state is not from that state. Prabha Shankar Mishra ji is from UP, was from from one. So Prabha Shankar Mishra, and another thing you must keep in mind, government or party spokesman coming on television and fighting the other person is a spin doctor, they can do whatever they want. You cannot argue like this thing before a judge, if a judge is interested. I can go to a TV studio and people go to TV studio and they attack their opponents and the debate is over. But in a court of law, the judge asks you precise question, you have to answer. So the order reads very clearly, Prabha Shankar Mishra, I also met him, but the order reads very clearly, you can check, it's available. He asked the government council, what is the government of India's stand? And the government of India, when it was cornered, they accepted on record that there is a plane crash story, but it is riddled with contradictions and eyewitness account is sketchy. And this was stated by the then Devi Gowda government. Had it been a Congress government, we would have got some other answer. But the government of Devi Gowda will not lie. So when you corner government of India, especially as a non-Congress government, they will come out with the truth or certain part of it. So then the judge ordered, you yourself accepting before me, court of law, that the evidence is not clear, then might as well form a new commission of inquiry. So this becomes your reason number 3 to dismiss the plane crash story. Anybody who tells you that he died in a plane crash, please ask them if Netaji died in 45, and this is what government says today or now gives a statement to media. Why did you not tell this thing to the court of law there? Because court of law they could not, dodge. They can dodge for media. So the government of India, that by the time, luckily by the time again, luck that by the time the court order came, Atal Bihari Vajpayee becomes the Prime Minister. Now, Atal Bihari Vajpayee has a long link to Subhash Bose, in a sense that he was part of the efforts to have the statue in Parliament, his portrait in Parliament, and he was right from 1960s. He was asking questions about Netaji there. So it was not possible for Atalji to behave like Rajiv Gandhi. There was another case in 1985 in the Rajasthan High Court, first case which went to the court, the Rajasthan High Court, in which the court ordered the government to do some kind of an inquiry. Rajiv Gandhi government did not even respond to it. I mean, today you cannot imagine anybody doing that. But there they could not, so there was a meeting in Delhi, Advaniji, because the matter of Netaji's death is in the remit of the Home Ministry. Advaniji, then Home Secretary, Soli Swarajji and others, their meeting took place and decision was taken to form a commission of inquiry, and eventually at the suggestion of the Chief Justice of India, Manoj Kumar Mukherjee, a former Supreme Court judge, was asked to do the inquiry. This is where I became active, so I have personal knowledge of the issues concerned. Chandrachud also has. So from 1999 to 2005, this commission functioned in our time, all of us time. And before the commission, there was a government lawyer, government's lawyer. So the government's lawyer, I know him personally right now, but it's again a matter of record. The government lawyer made the same statement before the commission that the plane crash story is not acceptable. And in fact, in 2005 February, there was the argument session. At the end of the commission's inquiry, there was an argument made by all the lawyers concerned So this argument was made by the government lawyer. It is a matter of record. By this time, Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister for several months. So you cannot put the blame on the BJP. Congress party had plenty of time to change, but they could not. So the problem, this thing, nobody before, when the government is cornered in before the court of law or by a judge, they sing a different tune, but otherwise they sing a different tune. Mukherjee Commission came to conclusions. Men may lie, but circumstances do not. This entire story was planted. Subhash Bose never died in any plane crash. There was no plane crash, and this smoke screen of a plane crash was created. And this man was trying to go to Russia because Russia was the only country which could give him shelter. Because he was told very clearly that if you die, the freedom struggle will come to an end. If you survive, for your survival is important for the country's freedom struggle. Because there was no freedom struggle happening in 45. After the flop show of 1942, nothing was happening. So the only fight was going on was the case of Subhash Bose and the A.Dhar Sarkar. And this is what happened. And Justice Mukherjee could not get any evidence from Russian side because he was not given access to the Russian intelligence reports. We'll come later on that part. But plane crash story per se he removed. In the course of doing this, there were other things which happened. There are multiple stories that we have to rush very quickly. There's a thing with the Taiwan. Taiwan is where the plane crash took place. Right from 1947, the government of India has some kind of allergy towards Taiwan. We do not want to do an inquiry there. We had other committee passed in 56 and there's another commission 70. Did not allow. The government of India was never keen. In fact, government of India was not even allowing Justice Mukherjee to visit Taiwan. So the government of India does not want to go to Taiwan to do the inquiry. The reason why it came known, I became active as a journalist because, and the reason was made clear by the Taiwan government. As far as they are concerned, there was no plane crash the entire month. So whatever they know. So they removed the plane crash story. So now you have it from the just like the version of the Americans, Chacha Nehru, government of India and courts of law, and the Taiwanese government is also rejecting this. So everybody is rejecting the plane crash story, only our government, maybe accepting it. Another point which came to fore, and people still ask, you people are talking so much about all this mumbo jumbo, why don't you just do a DNA test of these remains and be through with it? Why must we bother about all these things? I mean, this is a new age. Science has come. No, this is scientific era. But you think that Justice Mukherjee does not know what is a DNA test? I mean, he was a Supreme Court judge. So he knew, he tried. First thing you must understand about the DNA testing of the remains of Netaji. Well, this is what small technicality nobody will tell you in media. The ashes are in Japan, in that temple, but they are in our custody. In 1952, the Indian embassy in Japan took the position of the remains. And physical custody has been given to the temple piece, whom we pay some money. This is the reality. Okay, so the ashes are with us. You want to get a DNA test done, it will happen tomorrow morning. There is nothing coming in the way. No Japan, nothing. No America, Japan, nobody stopping you. You want to do a test, do it tomorrow. In fact, government might have even done it privately. So nobody can stop you. It's in your hand. So Justice Mukherjee went to Japan. So he wanted to take a look at the remains, but he was, for whatever reason, he was not allowed to. Something went wrong. There was holiday, no carpenter was available, so on and so forth. Anyhow, he asked the Indian embassy to open the casket, which is Netaji's, which contains Netaji's so-called remains, and send the photograph to him. So it was done, and Justice Mukherjee had these remains, these photographs of the remains in Netaji temple, seen by top experts, DNA, India, America, Japan. Lalji Singh Hyderabad, very well-known expert of DNA, he was also consulted. All of them said that the DNA is most likely is not possible. It is virtually zero because these are burnt human remains. So if bones are old, you can get something out, even of dinosaur. But the problem is the burnt remains of this body was probably burned for several hours in furnace. So there's no chance of any DNA test here. So that's what the expert said. But one expert, Terry Milton, she said, I am not very hopeful, but nonetheless I can try and give it a shot. And perhaps I can try and do it. And I can try and do a mitochondrial DNA test. Now mitochondrial, you might know also better than me. It is something which from mother it comes to daughter. So it's not in the male, but in the sister side. So Netaji's sister's daughter had given blood sample. Tripti, she was alive then. So she gave sample, and another member of, I think, her family was Netaji's sister's children. They had given blood sample. So she said, yes, I can do the mitochondrial, I can try. And this was the best DNA possibility in those days. But she put a condition, Terry Wilson, that you try first give me an anthropological evaluation report of these remains. Now, anthropological evaluation would tell you what are these? Are these human remains? Very easy, yes, these are human remains. Very easy to find out whether, for example, what actually you have there essentially parts of jawbones and chunks of skull. And a forensic anthropological guy can easily find out many things. For example, if the male is shorter in height and female is tall, still this skull, this portion is always thick with male. So there are multiple ways of scientists can find out whose remains these are. Like Netaji, I mean, is an Indian guy or South Asian or is like Eastern guy or a Caucasian fellow. This is very important because by this time Mukherjee had got out clear evidence. The evidence was there earlier also, but government ignored it. The body was of a Japanese soldier named Ichiro Okura. Because they had to have a body. Somebody had to die every year in the hospitals. So one person died. So his body was used as Netaji's body as part of the cover plan. That's why the picture of the body was not taken. So these remains are very clear. The evidence is very clear. All contemporary records available. These are Ichiro Okura's remains. So probably a forensic anthropological test would have told you these are Asian remains or Indian remains also. So anyhow, but the question to put to us today, why there is no DNA test on Netaji's remains? The answer is that after Justice Mukherjee put this view of Terry Milton before the government of India, they declined up, more or less. They did not respond. So the government of India is not keen. We are all for testing. Now, this is one of the records which came out after Modi ji declassified a lot of files at our behest. We tried, we came out. Now read this very carefully. They are discussing why or why not there should be a DNA test on Subhash Bose's remains. This is from the Prime Minister's office. A slight change in the result may create hue and cry. If the result is in positive, then the entire issue will be resolved. In case the result comes in negative, as to the DNA result does not tally with the biological samples conflict with relatives, one can imagine the rest of the nation. If you're so sure that these are Netaji's remains, why are you afraid? They're the guys afraid. He's scared. He said, अगर नहीं मैच किया तो मारे जाएंगे. करवाओ किसने रोका आपको टेस्ट करो और डीएनए टेस्ट करने में क्या प्रॉब्लम? What is a big deal about getting it?
It can be done anything. I mean, we have been accused कि हम लोग DNA test के लिए राजी नहीं है. We are completely okay with the DNA test, but we have certain conditions. We know our forensic labs are compromised, corruption is rampant, and we are not saying this. Top political leaders and even the high courts in the country have said that in their orders. These are all publicly available.
ये कहानी है कि ये बड़ा केस हुआ था भंवरी. I wonder if you've heard about it. Bhamri Devi murder case of Rajasthan. The problem was the lady's body was disposed of by the minister concerned. August का था भी. तो वो how do you prove death? You have to have a dead body to prove a death. ना, body is not available. तो बॉडी कैसे प्रूव करेंगे? तो सीबीआई ने जो इंक्वायरी की उसकी रिपोर्ट उन्होंने सीबीआई ने अनाउंस किया कैसे उसका भंवरी देवी मर्डर केस क्रैक हुआ था ये. तो they went all over Rajasthan, looking for the remains of the poor lady and dug them out from some remote part of the country. When this was happening, all this inquiry was taking place. Nobody was sermonizing as was done being done on Netaji show. वो बंगाल में कहते हैं कि होबे क्या होगा? What is the purpose of it? क्यों आप बड़े मुद्दे फाड़ रहे हो? जो चला गया वो तो चला गया है. क्या आगे की बात हो तुम लोग ऐसी बेकार की बातें कर रहे हो? अच्छा बेटा तुम्हारे सारे लत्तू खेला की तुम इंक्वायरी करो. हम लोग फालतू बैठे हैं यहाँ पे. Every Tom, Dick and Harry who dies with a murder with an inquiry. In fact, recently I came to know somebody stole a behest in Buffalo in Maharashtra. After 35 years they captured it. आप एक 5 पैसे की गपला कर लो, आपको कोर्ट से somebody in Delhi, DTC दिल्ली बस ट्रांसपोर्ट that fellow 5 रुपीस का चोरी किया था, 5 रुपए का. सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक ने उसको नहीं छोड़ा, 15 साल तक नहीं चलता था. तो छोटे-छोटे केस आपके चल रहे 50-50, 100 साल तक इंक्वायरी कर रहे हो. राजीव गांधी के डेथ में बेहुदा किस्म की वाहियात स्टेटमेंट देती है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. उस पर उन्होंने अरबों रुपए बहा दिया इंक्वायरी करके. कुछ नहीं निकला. क्यों निकलेगा? कुछ है नहीं उसके अंदर राजीव गांधी की डेथ में. तो वहां तुम्हारे को पैसा सारा का सारा अवेलेबल है, सारी की इंक्वायरी करवाओ. लेकिन नेताजी के बारे में बोलते कि साहब ये तो पैसा वेस्ट हो रहा है. तो यहाँ तो किसने कहा नहीं कि पैसा वेस्ट हो रहा है? कि वहां पे न तो कोई नहीं आएगा. जो वो गया तो गया, लेकिन there's a yardstick of justice. There's a yardstick of justice.
So if you listen to the official narrative, everybody is entitled to justice. So you will see those campaigns, justice for this person, justice for that person. Everybody is entitled to justice in free India except Subhash Chandra Bose. He does not deserve justice. He is not entitled to justice. So that is the government narrative, purpose of narrative. That's how battles of narrative are fought.
जब ये मुखर्जी कमीशन बना था, और कमीशन बना कोर्ट के ऑर्डर पे, इट वाज नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ एनी गवर्नमेंट, एनी किसी ने उनको चंदा दिया था, कोर्ट के ऑर्डर बनाया, लोगों ने एनआईपीआई फॉलो किया। वहां के डिड यू बिलीव कलकत्ता के जो लीडिंग न्यूज़पेपर्स हैं उसके एडिटोरियल्स आते कि पैसा वेस्ट कर रहे हैं आप, व्हाई वेस्ट पब्लिक मनी। तुम्हारे को बड़ी टेंशन है बंगालियों को पैसे की, जब बाबा रामदेव ने एंटी करप्शन कहा था तो कोई बंगाली समझ नहीं आया, अब तो बहुत टेंशन है पैसे की तुम्हारे को, पैसा बचाना है। मैं आपको बताता हूँ पैसे बचाने के तरीके बहुत सारे। आप दिल्ली में आइए, हमारे हिंदुओं में कोई कस्टम नहीं है ग्रेवयार्ड का, वो जहाँ पे महात्मा गांधी का घरों की समाधि, हमारे समाधि किसी राजा वाला की नहीं होती, हमारे तो गांधी सिंपल आदमी थे यार। वो लैंड का आपको वैल्यू मालूम है कितना उसका? It is worth billions of dollars.
Sir, you were talking about Delhi. Let's not go there. I mean, but we were living in current times. So the best example from the current times is in Bengal itself. The ED recovered 52 crores cash from a minister's girlfriend's room. So they use cheap money. They get good utilization of money.
Idea. They keep telling us कि why waste money. I mean, I'm telling you, you save money. Poor people उनकी झुग्गी झोपड़े बना तो वहाँ पे गांधी जी की काम है जो समाधि के ऊपर ऐसा गांधी जी खुद तो प्रो पुअर थे। वहां आपने अरबों रुपए की जमीन को आपने रोक रखा है बैठ करके, और हमें आप लेक्चर दे रहे हैं कि पैसा खर्च हो रहा है। तो पैसे बचाने के बहुत तरीके निकल जाएंगे, देश में उसकी चिंता मत करो। ये इन्होंने भूमि देवी का हड्डी वड्डी वहां से निकोल के इनको अमेरिका में FBI लैब में भेजा चेक कराने के लिए। हमारी बारी में देसी लैब, हमारे को 2 मिनट देसी लैब, और उनकी जो केस मार्केट में उछल गया उसको इंटरनेशनल चेक कराते हैं हर जगह। अमेरिकन FBI लैब से रिपोर्ट आई कि हड्डी मैच कर रही है, दिस इज हाउ केस वाज क्रैक्ड। Keep this in mind.
And this was not the only case. Bhavani Devi was foreign lab. Sunanda Pushkar, if you remember, was CBI lab in the US. Alushi case, US lab. Only in case of Netaji, it has to be some corrupt local lab. So, coming back to that point, we are not against the DNA testing of the remains kept in Rinpoche temple. But it has to be done in the state-of-the-art lab in one of the independent countries, in the developed countries. There has to be monitoring team. It has to be done completely transparently so that every step can be monitored, and if there is even the slightest deviation from any step, it will be called to a halt and one can spoil. So these are our basic conditions. I don't think we are asking for too much. We are asking for a transparent process where every step will be monitored.
और ये उसके बाद में जब
अच्छा, let's move ahead. Anuj, we are running short of time.
This what happened कि our misfortune कि मुखर्जी कमीशन की रिपोर्ट जब आती है तो उस टाइम पे कांग्रेस की गवर्नमेंट पावर में आ गई थी। I'm sorry to tell you this thing, but it's a reality. अब उसमें जो गवर्नमेंट पावर में आई तो उस जमाने में वहाँ पे विश्वनाथ पाटिल जी वहाँ पे होम मिनिस्टर थे। So this is the rejection slip which was put in parliament. No reasoning is given. Imagine a person called C.Ghoose has died. There's an inquiry about his death, which is the most heart-wrenching issue one can think of towards anybody. And the inquiry is because of a High Court order. Inquiry is done by an honorable, upright and honest Supreme Court judge, former. And the rejection is given in one simple line. And who Subhash Chandra Bose, that is another topic which we'll discuss some other time. But in the last, just as the Netaji issue, there's so much of data has become available. Netaji's private and also a lot of data has become available. And one data which has become available very clearly tells you how India became free. The official narrative of Dedi Hame Azadi Bina Khadak Bina Dhal is a fancy. It is a fiction. The reality is that the British were running this country using our own people, especially in the police, military, intelligence. ये जो हमारे आज तो थ्योरियां आजकल जो गवर्नमेंट कोट कर रही है कि साहब अंग्रेज जाकर के गांव में लोगों को मारा है, अंग्रेज को आपने क्या समझ रखा भैया? अंग्रेज साहब लोग थे, अंग्रेज दिल्ली बॉम्बे में कलकत्ता बैठे थे, वो ऑर्डर करते थे कि मारो जाके, मारने वाले सारे वो बंगा भी हमारे हिंदुस्तानी भागे मारते थे। अंग्रेज नहीं आता था मारने के लिए, अंग्रेज साहब था। अंग्रेज बैठा था शिमला में, वहां से ऑर्डर करता था कि मार, और मारने वाले सारे हिंदुस्तानी जो इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद में साहब बन गए, उनके बच्चे साहब बने हैं बड़े बड़े सारे, उनका इसमें इंटरेस्ट, इनका इंटरेस्ट है होगा। तो उस सुभाष बोस की वजह से भारत की आर्मी में रिवोल्ट की नौबत आ गई थी। दैट वाज द रीजन दैट दिस कंट्री नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ अहिंसा। अच्छा, रिवोल्ट हो गया था, रिवोल्ट हो गया था। अब बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर नेताजी के दुश्मन भी नहीं थे लेकिन दोस्त भी नहीं थे। बीबीसी सुभाष चंद्र बोस का दोस्त नहीं था। बाबा साहब ने इंटरव्यू दिया 1956 में, 56 में। अब आप बोलोगे आप तो ट्विस्ट कर रहे हो, आप तो ये सुना रहे हो, आप तो उसको आउट ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट सुना रहे हो। तो आउट ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट को मारो गोली, ये उनके, आपको मैं उनके श्री मुख सुनाता हूँ मुख से। वो अंग्रेजी में बताएंगे बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर कि इंडिया आजाद कैसे हुआ था।
I do not know how country is actually became independent. That's a secret which actually one day I think will disclose.
He said कि I do not know how Mr. Attlee agreed. Attlee was the Prime Minister of England who decided to set India free. So this is how he's starting. I do not know how Mr. Attlee came to this conclusion, but then he gives.
I do not know how country Mr. Attlee agreed which became independent. That's a matter of secret which Mr. Attlee one day I think will disclose in his autobiography. How he came to that. Nobody ever expected. It is such a sudden change of thought. Nobody ever expected. It seems to me, from the analysis that I make about it, there are two things which I think led it to the Labour Party to take this decision. One is the national army that was raised by Subhash Chandra Bose. The British had been ruling this country in the firm belief that whatever may happen, you see, in this country, whatever a politician may do, they will never be able, you see, to change the loyalty of the soldiers. That was the one prop on which they were carrying on their administration. Now that thing was completely dashed to pieces. You see, when they found that even the soldier was being refused, you see, and to form a party or a battalion to blow off the British. Then I think the British came to the conclusion that if they were to rule India, the only basis on which they could rule was the maintenance of the British Army. Going back to the year 1857, when the Indian soldiers rebelled against the East India Company. And they found that it would never be possible for the British to supply India.
So the idea is that the plane crash story is out to any reasonable person. Of course, we can go on and
Well,
on.
just, let me come back. That's leaving the thing a bit abruptly. What this person explained, Ambedkar, Baba Saheb Ambedkar explained, was repeated by Attlee when he came to India in 1956. He said, in essence, the same thing to the then acting governor of West Bengal, P.B. Chakraborty, Bhushan Chakraborty. And it was from the 1970s, mid-1970s, from 1972 to be precise, the British government started publishing the secret documents, which were till then secret, the documents related to the transfer of power from the British Raj to the Indians. And these were published in 12 volumes. None of these, all these things were captured in those volumes, but none of our academic historians, those who taught in the universities and wrote our textbooks, bothered to capture that information and tell us that it was not Gandhian non-violence that gave us our independence, it was the impact of the INA that made the British beat a hasty retreat. That was completely covered. So that is the marginalization of Subhash Bose, which started in 1946 and has continued till date. It's only after the new government has come into power, it has started bringing out the actual contribution of Netaji. So the change is happening now, but before that, the previous 70 years, it is a story of marginalization of Subhash Bose.
Now the thing with Russian angle, there are reports available of intelligence, CIA, which we procured by the long story, and from the IB and other sources, which talk about Netaji's presence in Russia. So you ask me if you know it, then why don't we go to court of law? The problem, not the court of law, is a bit tricky here. So to me, as a former journalist and researcher, the evidence is clear. He was in Russia because I am willing to believe the report of intelligence. But the problem in a court of law, the things are a bit difficult. Now, for example, when Americans went to hunting for Bin Laden, they did not have any legally admissible evidence that he was in Abbottabad. So, in fact, they had only one picture of one person had gone to that home, and this person had supplied one of the tapes of Bin Laden, and then one tall person was seen, walking around. So, Obama, the American president, was also doubtful. He said, for all we know, there may be some sheikh sitting there with his wife. But then Americans went and they found this him there. So intelligence does not function like that. They have to go on the leads and all that. Now the question to me is, yes, we don't have any legally admissible evidence of Netaji's presence in Russia after 45. In the same way that India does not have any legally admissible evidence that Dawood Ibrahim is sitting in Pakistan. Because every time we give Pakistan government the dossier of intelligence that Dawood Ibrahim is in Pakistan government, we both are the same people made by the same system of Congress. वो भी बोलते हैं हमारे कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ में legally admissible evidence नहीं है. What would be the legally admissible evidence that Dawood Ibrahim is in Pakistan? It would be that Dawood Ibrahim were to file an affidavit in a court of law in Mumbai and say, my name is Dawood Ibrahim, son of court, I am sitting in Karachi right now. Only then will the court of law accept that he is sitting in Pakistan. Otherwise, it is clear that he was there. There are multiple reports, there are multiple, but keep in mind one thing, all the things which have come to light, all the credible, they all talk of two things. He was given shelter there. Subramanian Swamy in one of his press conferences has twisted the facts. He is talking about being given shelter. And you are depicting it as if he's been killed there. So he was given shelter and he was present there. And third thing which they are not talking about, which I cannot say because of ladies sitting here, but Stalin did not like Chacha Nehru at all. And we did not have good relations with Russians as long as Stalin was alive. For whatever reason, our first, when India became, transfer of power happened, our first envoy to Russia was Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. Panditji sent his own sister to Russia as the India's envoy, ambassador. And Stalin did not grant her, उसको मिलने से मना कर दिया.
He did not give her an audience.
हाँ, ये ऐसे तो बोलते हैं बहुत बड़े वर्ल्ड लीडर्स हैं, फ्लाट है, स्टालिन को कहा तक नहीं को गाली वो तो गाली वाली दी उनके बारे में. उसके बाद में फिर ये तो उनको कुछ स्टालिन ने उसके बाद मुझे कहते हैं गांधी जी को भी जब हत्या हुई है तो इन्होंने 2 दिन तक फूल हमको भेजे रशियन से हमारे को. तो रशिया के कोई रिश्ते हमारे से अच्छे नहीं थे उस टाइम पे. सो इट इज फुलिश प्रीमाइज के स्टालिन जो है, जो सुब्रम स्वामी का एलिगेशन है कि पंडित जी के कहने पे मरवा दिया उनको, कि स्टालिन जो है वो पंडित जी के कहने पे सुभाष बोस को मरवा देगा, क्योंकि रियलिटी ये है कि स्टालिन डज नॉट लाइक पंडित जी. ऑन द अदर हैंड ही हैज ऑलरेडी हेल्प्ड सुभाष बोस इन 1940. It doesn't make any sense. At the same time, as I said, there are multiple reports available. So this is, for example, one report. I told you initially about the combined section. That combined section was working in the British Indian Army and they did the inquiry and उसमें Finney था, उसमें Becquerel था. ये combined section की आखिरी available report है और ये report मैंने डायरेक्टर फॉर्मर आईजी को दिखाई थी. तो उन्होंने समझाया कि आपके रिसर्च में मतलब और जर्नलिज्म में और हमारे में कॉमन चीज होती है कि अगर 3 मल्टीपल सोर्सेज इंडिपेंडेंट अगर वो मर्ज कर जाए एक जगह पे, it becomes gospel truth. If 3 individuals who are not linked to each other, if they confirm one fact that I saw so and so there, take it, it's more or less fact. यहाँ पे मल्टीपल सोर्सेज, महात्मा गांधी का भी आ रहा है, बताया था उसने इनर वॉइस की कहानी सुनाई थी, वो बड़ी लंबी चौड़ी कहानी है. अलग अलग लोग कह रहे हैं कि सुभाष बोस इज अलाइव इन रशिया. Now this, for example, it says, it seems clear that Bose and his staff were trying to make a getaway to Russia. Habibur Rahman, Pritam Singh, Guldara Singh and Hassan have all examined and appeared to have lied. All the people who were with Subhash Bose in the last 2 days have lied. But they were alive. None of them believe. Pritam Singh ने खुल्लम खुल्ला एफर्ट दिया उसमें मुखर्जी कमीशन में और कि वो नेताजी रशिया में चले गए. सारी बातें उन्होंने बोली है, वो तो देवसी थी, वो मिसलीडिंग इंफॉर्मेशन. Now, in the end,
that is the interpretation of an intelligence man. If different sources say when you get the same information, it means that the information is correct. That is the interpretation of how top intelligence level officers do that. What do academic historians do? People who write the books, whose books you read and then you form your opinion. Plane crash के time पे when every individual, every eyewitness, be it the passenger of the plane or those who were in the airport or even in those in the hospital, that including the doctors and the nurses, not one single person agrees with each other, and every single individual is contradicting himself or herself when they are speaking at different points of time. These historians who were sponsored by the government funding, they had to say, they called all these differences, they gave a very nice mouthful name, minor discrepancies. So they were called minor discrepancies. And these intelligence inputs which are coming from the topmost level of the government from different sources saying the same thing, the Harvard professor who happens to be Netaji's family member also, he called this, he termed this another mouthful thing, is called bazaar gossip. So a professor cannot differentiate between absolute, total, contradictory statements which are obviously lies and cannot differentiate between what is a bazaar gossip and what is intelligence input. They are given all the focus by the government so that you can consume their stories as the most authentic.
ये इसमें बता रहे हैं कि रशियन एम्बेसडर इन काबुल इस रिपोर्ट में लिखा है जो कमाई सेक्शन की रिपोर्ट है कि रशियन एम्बेसडर दे वर इन्फॉर्म्ड बाय रशियन एम्बेसडर इन काबुल दैट देयर आर मेनी कांग्रेस रिफ्यूजीज इन मॉस्को एंड बोस वाज इंक्लूडेड इन द नंबर. There is little reason for such person to bring both into fabrication. So obviously, why would they tell such a lie? And Vice Consul Moradov, the Russian Vice Consul General in Tehran, disclosed in March that Bose was in Russia. Last month, they said Hong Kong where the plane crashed. Congress and Russian representatives in Tehran and Kabul are the most important objectives in this case as it stands now. इसके बाद की फाइलें पब्लिक नहीं की है तो हमें आगे कहानी खत्म हो जाती है. Now this is the sequence from the movie Gumnami, but it is real. It actually happened. This tells you a story about a person of Hindu Sarkar who was a young engineer, and this is very. It happened to multiple people, but this is also critical important because this gentleman in his old age gave deposition before Mukherjee Commission. I also met him. So I kind of believe him, very affable old man, very nice person, and he was so afraid after this, whatever happened to him in 1962, that he never opened his mouth and he opened his mouth only when old age, his children both gone to America, then he opened his mouth. So this is what happened to him. He went to Russia, he was working for, I think, heavy electrical plants, and his senior told him there that, Netaji was here. A German fellow told him that I met Subhash Bose in Germany. I met him in Siberia in a gulag. So then he went and reported to the Indian embassy, and this is what Mr. Sarkar told, and this is what the movie depicts. About the Netaji issue. भाई आपको रिपब्लिक टीवी का बाइट कोई रिपोर्टर लेने आए और अर्नब गोस्वामी खुद फोन करे तो फर्क होता है वो रिपब्लिक के, लेकिन वो लेवल का फर्क आएगा. रिपोर्टर को तो भगा दोगे लेकिन बॉस को नहीं भगा, तो बॉस ही बोलता है क्या करेगा अर्नब को, बॉस को अपनी भगा सकते. तो यू हैव टू वेरी माइंडफुल. भाई एक बीजेपी का मुझे प्रांत प्रमुख मुझे फोन कर रहा है कोई कहाँ पे, वहां से खबर आया कि मंत्री जी फोन करेंगे, ऑब्वियसली मंत्री को अभी खड़े हो जाएंगे सुनने के लिए. डिपेंड करता है कौन कर रहा है, आपका लेवल क्या है. दिस शो यू सीरियसनेस. अगर आपको केस में सीरियस दिखाना है, आई एम सीरियस अबाउट इट, यू विल पुट अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पर्सन, सीनियर लेवल, हाईएस्ट लेवल, तो उसमें आता है हाईएस्ट गवर्नमेंट टू गवर्नमेंट लेवल में भी. तो हमने उनको रिक्वेस्ट किया कि तो मोदी जी ने हमारे सामने बोला कि मैं दिस इज इन 2015 कि मैं पुतिन जी से मिल रहा हूं अभी, तो मैं उनसे बात रेज करूंगा. तो मोदी जी ने पुतिन जी से हमारे सामने कहा है, इट मस्ट बी समवेयर ऑन द रिकॉर्डेड बिकॉज इट वाज बीइंग टेलीकास्ट ऑन टेलीविजन, जब उनसे घर में मिलने गए थे. लेकिन हमें नहीं पता कुछ उसके बारे में, कोई हुआ बात हुआ नहीं हुआ, इट इज नॉट इन पब्लिक डोमेन. लेकिन उसके मोदी जी के बोलने के 10-12 दिन बाद सुषमा स्वराज जी ने बात करी, उसका बाइट है बट ये इसको ऑडियो के निकाल देते हैं. और उसके बाद में सुषमा स्वराज जी ने उनसे रशियन गवर्नमेंट से पूछा, और उसके बाद ये 2019 में जाकर के 4 साल बाद जाकर के जब किसी ने सवाल पूछा पार्लियामेंट में, तो सरकार ने बोला कि रशियन गवर्नमेंट ने बोला कि वी हैव नो इन्फॉर्मेशन. ये लैंग्वेज मीडिया की है, लेकिन उनका जो लैंग्वेज है कि वी हैव नो इन्फॉर्मेशन. तो ये वी हैव नो इन्फॉर्मेशन का मतलब मैं आपको समझा देता हूँ कि आपको मालूम है कि लाल बहादुर शास्त्री की डेथ हुई थी, प्रधानमंत्री की, ताशकंद में, और जब डेथ हुई थी तो उस टाइम पे वहां पे आधी भारत सरकार ताशकंद में बैठी थी. हमारा होम मिनिस्टर, होम सेक्रेटरी, फॉरेन मिनिस्टर, फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी, डिफेंस मिनिस्टर, डिफेंस सेक्रेटरी, पूरी आधी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हमारी वहाँ ताशकंद में बैठी थी उस टाइम पे. ठीक है जी. अब प्रधानमंत्री मर गया वहां पे, अब प्रधानमंत्री मर जाएगा तो लोग तो पागल हो जाएंगे. पहली जिंदगी में कभी सुना ऐसा हुआ नहीं कोई प्रधानमंत्री मर जाए फॉरेन कंट्री में जाकर के, फोन घुमाएंगे, टेलेक्स आएगा, जो भी था टेलेक्स तो वो था, मोर्स कोड होगा, मैसेज आएंगे ना, ये प्रधानमंत्री बीमार हो गए, ये हो गया, वो हो गया. सो डॉक्यूमेंट्स होंगे, रिकॉर्ड होगा, प्रधानमंत्री मर रहा है यार, कोई ऐसा मजाक है. तो इनसे मैंने सवाल पूछा, मैंने कहा 2 रिपोर्ट मेरे को इसके बारे में. तो ये आंसर मेरे को सूचना के अधिकार में उन्होंने दिया है, आप खुद पढ़ लो. The case was referred to both concerned division in this ministry as well as concerned mission in Moscow. The concerned division has conveyed they don't have information on the subject matter. इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब हिंदी में ये जुमला है, इसको हिंदी में कहते हैं कि तुझे क्यों बताऊं, तू कौन है, तू कौन है पूछने वाला. We have no information to give to you. I will not give it to you. Even I follow this rule. जितना भी आप और मैं चंद्रचूड़ घोष जितना भी आउटस्पोकन हो रहे हैं, ऐसी कई बातें आपको नहीं बताएंगे, मतलब थोड़ा बता करके. तो चक्कर ये कि ये वी हैव नो इन्फॉर्मेशन. ये कौन मानेगा बता बेकार की बात कर रहे हैं. देखिए रशिया के बारे में ये एक मजाक में मीम बनाया था और ये अभी तक बिल्कुल फिट चलता है. तो ये मजाक में मीम बना के डाला है. मोदी जी पुतिन जी मोदी जी को बोल रहे हैं कि भैया तुमने अपने तो आईडी के रॉ के रिकॉर्ड कंप्लीट किए नहीं समाज को, उसके हमसे क्यों मांगते हो केजीबी के रिकॉर्ड. चैरिटी बिगिंस एट होम. दुनिया में दुनिया में सत्य और शांति फैलाने का ठेका किसने लिया? हिंदुस्तान ने लिया। खाने में पेट में रोटी भूखना हो आपके, दुनिया में शांति आप लेकर के आएंगे। मैं बोल के तंग आ गया लोगों को, भैया दुनिया में शांति लाने के लिए अमेरिका बहादुर बैठा हुआ है। तो मेरे दिल्ली में पानी ले आओ, कम से कम 4 घंटे पानी नहीं आता, 2 घंटे पानी आता सुबह मुश्किल से, ठीक है जी। तो दुनिया में शांति और सत्य फैलाने का जिन्होंने ठेका लिया हुआ है, भैया तुम तो अपनी फाइलें खोल के दिखाओ, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? ये अभी कोई फाइलें आईबी लॉ की पब्लिक नहीं करी है। एक नंबर जो उस्ताद है उस पर हमारे पास पाएंगे। दुनिया में कोई आपको देश, अमेरिका, इंग्लैंड, यूरोप आपको सीक्रेट इंटेलिजेंस की फाइलें नहीं दिखाएगा जब तक आप अपना मान ममता उनको नहीं दिखाओगे। हमने अपना पब्लिक करना नहीं है, हम तो इनके गुरु हैं, मैं आपको मैं प्रूफ करूंगा उसके बाद। तो ये प्रॉब्लम आ रही है कि आप तुमसे वो कौन सा गाना था बड़ा पुराना हिंदी में, तुमसे बुलाया ना गया हमसे आया ना गया, वो वाली कहानी है कि ये तो रशिया से हमारा अप्रोच नहीं हो पा रहा है। और
Yeah, let's keep this part for now. Let's come to the end because time will become a problem.
then you will not let many
So
questions.
I'll just then let's not go through the sites. I will just briefly tell you the
No,
story.
I'll keep on there because without the visual it will not make sense.
So the thing is that how did all this all start and हमने इस काम को हाथ में क्यों लिया और क्या कर रहे थे इतने साल? So I told you that we have been working for the last 2 decades and what have we been doing? शुरू में मैंने रेफर किया था that Anuj's first book came out in 2004, Back from Dead, and around that time उसके थोड़ी देर बाद ही the Mukherjee Commission was wrapped up and his conclusions, his findings were rejected. Now at that time we were a lot of youngsters scattered across the world. Anuj was in Delhi, I was in UK, but we were all very sincerely following what was going on here. And Anuj was our man on ground, reporting exactly what was going on and what is expected and all. But जब रिजेक्ट हो गया मुखर्जी कमीशन का रिपोर्ट, it was a shock for us to some extent, although expected, but it was still a shock because the entire issue was dead. The government gave no reason for rejecting, but when after much persuasion, when the parliament debated the issue, the debate was closed prematurely. It was assurances were given that we will take it up later, it will happen again, but the government never took it up. It was the matter was killed. Netaji's disappearance mystery was finished forever, pushed under the carpet. It was gone. The newspapers wrote obituaries. They called it a damn squib, a futile exercise, and meaningless, pointless wastage of time. Historians in the Jawaharlal Nehru University called it publicly a sheer wastage of time, and it irks them, it irritates them. It's such a nonsensical issue. So the entire atmosphere was hostile and indifferent. They were not interested. The case was closed. For us, it was a very difficult time because we could not accept that such a big thing can be closed, killed rather, like that. So we started wondering what can we do as ordinary individuals scattered around the world. We don't have power, we don't have money, we don't have other resources. What can we do? People like us do. As it is a very fanciful saying, the fortune favors the brave. I don't want to say that. But something happened, something favorable happened, as luck would have it. The government of India passed a new law in 2005. There was a lot of demand for transparency in administration, so people wanted to know how much money is being spent on making roads, creating new drains and public services ration and everything. And they passed this new law called the Right to Information Act, which would bring in transparency in administration. Probably nobody thought that this was a piece of law which could be used to dig up buried history also. And that's what we decided to do. So I was in UK, I could not do anything, so I wrote to my friends here, Shantan, Anuj, and our youngest at that time, Vishal, who was sitting in Delhi. I said, I drafted the application and said, please go and file it to the Home Ministry. So it was a request for sharing documents which belonged to the Shanwas Committee, which was set up in 1956 by Pandit Nehru, and then the Commission of Inquiry set up by Indira Gandhi in 1970. So we asked for a set of documents which were called exhibits. Exhibits are documents. When a commission of inquiry functions, thousands of documents are submitted by different people, hundreds of people. But the commission, the person in charge of the commission, they select certain documents which they feel are important enough, and they base their conclusion on those documents. And at the end of the report, usually what they do is they make a list of those documents. That these are the list of documents which I have referred to, which I have depended for reaching my conclusion. So these are called exhibits. In technical terms, they are called exhibits. So we wanted the exhibits which were mentioned in the Shanwas Committee and the Khosla Commission. The government told us the first thing, that which Anuj was just showing, that there is no information. There is no information about this because these don't exist. So this was the first response. And they completely denied and took recourse to the excuse that if we give out information related to Netaji, there will be serious law and order problem within the country. Our relation with foreign countries will be spoiled, and so on and so forth. Lot of problems. Basically, the issue was Netaji is a problem issue. Don't even think of touching it, and don't ask anything from us. But that is where the battle began, and we took on the battle. We fought through step by step, proved that those documents existed, and it was only the second time that the Central Information Commission, the apex body of the transparency bureaucracy, they had the second full bench hearing. And initially the CIC was hostile to us, but they turned around when we proved that these documents existed and the Home Ministry was hiding information. Then the CIC turned around and started favoring us. And when the CIC was on the verge of giving a verdict, the Home Minister, the second most powerful bureaucrat in the country, he wrote a confidential letter to the Information Commissioner that we have more than 70,000 documents which are still kept secret. But if we release these documents, there will be widespread law and order problem in the country, especially in Bengal. Now, this is not an off-the-cuff remark. It is not a casual statement.
No, it's deliberate remark.
It is coming from the second most powerful bureaucrat in the country and written confidentially. So this ticked off the Information Commissioner. And we had asked for 202 documents. The the full bench of the Information Commission sat and passed the order that you have to give them the 202 documents, and all other documents that you have must be sent to the National Archives, gradually start the process now. So that was the thing. Now many people tend to think that we are talking about history. We are talking of the past. Oh, jo ho gaya, so ho gaya. This is of academic interest. Now let me tell you something. We are not talking about history. We are talking of something which is very much of present politics. And why am I even saying that? I will give you two examples. The first example was of this order. 202 documents. Central